Good afternoon. It's Saturday in San Antonio. Man, the weather changed so bad. Yesterday was so beautiful. Today it's cold and windy. And I was outside for a while, and I mean, the wind's really blowing. So the cedar, I think the last of the cedar, for those of us that get cedar fever, that it's an allergy, a terrible allergy, generally lasts through February. I think this may be about the end of it. I hope so. It causes you to sneeze a lot, your eyes to water up, and ears to ring, and makes you feel like you got the flu. Uh, but it's just about over. Listen, today is a geography lesson, kind of. You know, I'm going to talk about there's a place where it's very difficult to minister. But before I do that, let me just show you something. I hope you can see this. It's a Bible atlas. Okay? It's helpful to have something like this. Yeah, I'm reading about Jesus and all his travels and where he's going and where he's been and all. You know that his whole life he never went more than 30 miles from where he grew up there in Bethlehem and then in Nazareth. And the bulk of his ministry was done around Galilee, in that region there, and where there's the Lake of Galilee. And way south is Jerusalem. Between Jerusalem and Galilee is Samaria. And so as we were studying about this, most Jews, if they wanted to go from Jerusalem to Galilee, they would go up around the Jordan River, which flows from north to south from the Sea of Galilee down to the Dead Sea. They would go up around, they would go around Samaria so they didn't have to deal with Samaritans to get up there. And Jesus went directly from through Samaria to go all the way up into Galilee. And there, when he was in Samaria, he encountered the Samaritan woman. From there, he goes up, further up, north. Let me show you, kind of in the map. I don't know if you can see here. Yeah. And you can see where it's all kind of green there. That's the Sea of Galilee. And Jerusalem is south of there. And the bulk of his ministry was there. A number of disciples that he called were fishermen there in that sea and so forth. So if you get a chance, you ever go to a bookstore or maybe used bookstores, and you'd be amazed how many great Bible books and literature you can find at used bookstores. You know, a lot of people don't read books anymore, so they donate them and everything. I like to have them because I like to have the print right in front of me. But let me just show you about one little thing here today. And so in verse, you remember the story? He's in Samaria. Okay, he's witnessing already to Nicodemus, the woman of Samaria. Okay, and so he's talking about sowing and reaping and that the harvest is ready and everything. Okay, and verse 38, it says, and from that city many of the Samaritans believed in him because of the word of the woman who testified. Now I'm going to come back to this. Okay, she was saved, she was an outcast, she runs into town and she tells everybody, look, here's the Christ. And so they're all curious, they run out there. And then he says, she said, he told me all the things I'd done. So when the Samaritans came to him, they were asking him to stay with them. And he did. He stayed for a couple of days teaching them. And many more believed then because of his word. And they were saying to the woman, now listen to this, it is no longer because of what you've said that we believe, for we have heard for ourselves and know that this one is indeed the Savior of the world. So even where the Jewish people didn't recognize who he was, these Gentiles did. And they testified that they were believing not just because of what she said, but because of what they heard Jesus say himself. And so he stays for them for 2 days, and then after 2 days he went forth he went forth, and this is what he said. For Jesus himself testified that a prophet has no honor in his country. That's what I want to speak on. For those of us that were saved later on in life, and people seen the way we were before, and I know in my circumstance, even with my own family, even with my own mom and dad, when I got saved, I was a mess before I got saved. Okay, so when I got saved, they were a little skeptical, and I'll never forget. They did not believe. They thought it was a passing fad. Okay, they didn't accept what I said. And I went back to hang with my old friends to kind of witness them. They didn't accept it either. Okay, come on, man, have a beer with us. You know, you don't need to be talking that Jesus stuff here. And they did not accept me. Okay, now, if I went somewhere else where people didn't know what I was like before, I was right away accepted, you know, as a Christian. But, you know, when you get saved later on, people know what you did. They know who you are. And it's the same thing with Jesus. That's why they didn't accept Jesus. He grew up among them. Okay? Oh, isn't this the carpenter's son? Yeah, I know his brothers and sisters. Yeah, he's the Messiah. Nah, come on. They didn't believe it. Okay, well, Jesus is testifying to that. That's the reality. Okay, you want to have an effective ministry, it's hard to do in your own home. Okay, even with this woman, even though she went there and aroused her curiosity, they then turned around and said to her, it's not because of what you said. It's because we've heard him for ourselves. They didn't have to say that, but they did, because it's very difficult for you to establish authority as a spokesman for God where you grew up. It's not impossible, but even Jesus said that you're not going to receive honor. No prophet receives honor. Okay, no prophet was an office. It was, you know, it wasn't just claiming to be an ordinary Christian, but somebody that is a spokesman. Okay, so he goes on and he says, for Jesus himself testified that a prophet has no honor in his own country. So when he came to Galilee, the Galileans received him, having seen all the things he did in Jerusalem at the feast, for they themselves also went to the feast. So all these Jews came from all over the region. They all went down to Jerusalem. And while they were there at the Passover, they saw what Jesus had done. Now they had gone back home, and they're up around in that region in Galilee. And now Jesus is up there ministering to them. So if you ever get a chance, you know, and you find a Bible atlas like this, they're really good. You can, I Googled maps on them, but they're not nearly as good as this. Now, the best thing you could probably do is take a trip to Israel. I've never done it. I would like to someday, but even if I don't, I'll get there someday when we return with Jesus to help establish the millennial. I've never been to Jerusalem. I've been to Calvary. A lot of people have been to Jerusalem, but never been to Calvary. But I've been to Calvary. Okay, that's all for today. I'm going to take it easy. I think I'm going to order me a pizza today and just kind of stay inside for a while. I had a good week, really great week, and I enjoy getting in the Word, sharing what I can find that's helpful to y'all. Y'all have a great week as well. God bless y'all.